So we're back. This is the second video. This one will be on the equipment and care of the equipment. I want to introduce you to what's going on. Make sure you understand what the pieces are, so later on when I'm talking about something and I mention the rail or the tip or the ferrule or whatever, that you know what I'm talking about. So let's start with the basic parts. What do you need to have in your bag? What do I carry in my bag? I carry my playing cue, my braking cue, I carry a spare shaft for my playing cue, I carry chalk, more chalk, and somewhere here is my shaper. More chalk. Never have enough chalk in your case. Ah, there it is. Pen so that I can grab signatures when I need them. Kind of funny, this case is it's a Predator. I wanted it in a Pro-Am. Came with some signatures already on it. As I've gone around and done stuff and been places and played games, I've gotten more signatures on it. I've got signatures everywhere from, you know, Ray Martin, Buddy Hall, Charlie Williams, Ava Mattia Lawrence is on there, Sarah Ellerby's on there. So men and women pros. And eventually someday when I've got enough signatures, I'll probably eBay it for auction and it'll go to somebody who deserves it, and the money will go to a charity that deserves it. The other thing that's in my case is a shaper. This is a Willard's shaper. In my mind, this is the best shaper there is. It's nothing but a flat disc of metal. It's anodized aluminum, I believe. And it's got a sandpaper finish that's in this curved shape. It's made for shaping and or scuffing a tip, and all you do is you take the disc and you do it exactly the same way most people chalk. You just give it a couple spins and you use the outside for leverage, and then you throw it at your dog, who's now looking at me like I'm crazy. So shaper, Willard shaper, indispensable. Have one, keep it with you, never get caught without it. And that's it. That's all I carry in my case. You do not see a jump cue in here. I don't believe in the new jump cues. I know they work. I know that that you can make some pretty incredible jumps with them, with a lot of control. The problem that I have with them is that they're almost cheating to me. They take the skill out of the jump shot. So you will not see me use a jump cue. You won't see me break down my cue and use the shaft to jump. If I jump, which is actually pretty rare, I will use a full cue. It's a skill that's worth having, and with the extra knowledge of banks that came out of my 3-cushion background, I find very, very few times when I actually want to jump a ball. And sometimes if I do need to jump a ball, I can use a rail to get there. And we'll show you rail jumps and the ins and outs of those in one of these videos. So there's the equipment. That's the basic equipment. The table that we'll be using, this is a Brunswick Gold Crown 5. It is a tournament edition, which means that the rails are a little bit longer, makes the pockets a little bit smaller. But unlike a shimmed table or a diamond or an Olhausen, the rail angles stay the same as the original Brunswick, which means that a ball coming down the rail hitting the edge here will still fall in. I have a real problem with tables that don't meet the classic regulation and make the table tougher by turning the angles. The only place that's appropriate in my mind is on a snooker table where they're rounded and they're really built to reject the shot. So anyhow, this is a Gold Crown 5. The cloth on it is Simona's 860. It's a little outdated. It needs to be replaced. The only actual flaw in the cloth is on the foot spot. There is a slight indentation and it's starting to wear into a rip. I'm going to have to replace it pretty soon. But right now, that's minimal. That's the only flaw in the cloth. I'm going to show you in a couple minutes how to take care of this cloth. This cloth is the original cloth from 6 years ago, and as much as I play pool, you can see it's still in really good shape, and that's because I take care of it properly. And I will show you that. I will show you how I do it, and it's a ritual that I follow every time I walk up to the table to play. For those that saw the video, the private video I made yesterday, the only reason I didn't clean it yesterday before play is because I wanted to do this video on how to clean it before I went any further. So there are three main types of cue ball that are out there. There's the red dot, which comes with the Aramith sets. There's the blue dot that comes with the Centennial sets. And then there's this beast, which is called the measle cue ball, or it's used primarily for matches. Well, it's used in the Pro Tour at all matches now, so that spectators can see the spin that's on the cue ball, and I use it for that same exact purpose. So I mentioned Centennial and Aramith. Let's talk about those real quick. These are Centennials. That'll be what I'm shooting against in the video. That's what's used on the Pro Tour. They're made by Brunswick. They are made to extremely tight tolerances, and they are considered to be the ball to use for a standard set. And they do make TV sets of these as well, where the 4 ball's kind of pink, so you can tell the difference between the 4 and the 2 ball. This is a standard set. Sorry if you can't see the difference between the 2 and the 4. You'll just have to watch the order I play them in. You can tell a Centennial because it has a black ring around the number, and it has these 2 little points that point in at the number. If it doesn't have that, it's not a Centennial. And if it has it, 99% of the time it is a Centennial. This is an Aramith ball. Polymer in it is a little bit different from the Centennials, but the size and weight are the same. The main difference between them is that the Centennial is manufactured to a much tighter tolerance. You'll notice it on this. There is no black ring. There are no little points pointing at the number. There's nothing wrong with these. They're just a little cheaper to buy because they're not made to the same tolerance. So a set of Aramiths is about $100. A set of Centennials will run you between $250 and $300 retail. So those are the balls we're going to be using. And again, you can see that these are pretty dirty. So and I did that deliberately so that we could go over how to clean them. So the last piece is the chalk. You will see me using this, which is Master Blue chalk. The color is blue, not sky blue. This is the only chalk you will see me use. If you compare it to other chalk, you will find that it's finer, which means that it sticks to the tip a little better, less miscues, better friction, overall superior chalk. There is other stuff out there I run into occasionally that's similar, has similar qualities. But for me, Master is always that quality, so that's what I use. It's not expensive. It was $5 for a case of 12. So not very expensive, and worth every penny. Okay, so that's the equipment. Now we're going to go over cleaning it and taking care of it. So we actually already started this a little bit with the cue itself. The tip, we talked about shaping it. After you shape it, there's a kind of neat trick you should do, which is called burnishing. And if I actually had any money with me, I'd show you how to do it. We'll talk about burnishing some other time. So, your shaft. Rule number one of your shaft. Never, ever, ever use that white chalk, that powdery white chalk that's sitting on the wall. Not on your own cues. You might use it if it's a house cue, and the reason you have to use it is because it has never had the lacquer removed, so it gets sticky. Now, personally, the very first thing I do whenever I get a new shaft or a new cue is I take a green pad. This is just your kitchen green pad. They're made by 3M. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. And you just run it a few times up and down, and it will take the lacquer off of your cue. You want that lacquer to be gone. So, a few times up and down. What you want is you want natural wood. If you have natural wood, it'll be really, really smooth. You'll never have a problem with it sticking. It'll always move freely. And then you don't touch it again until you have, until it starts to get sticky, because chalk from your hand has gotten into the pores of the wood and it's humid out, so it'll get a little gummy. If it does that, you just pull out your green pad, which by the way should be in your case. And mine was out because I was using it yesterday. The green pad, pull out your green pad a couple times up and down the shaft, and it's just fine. Some people use these other things. There's various chemicals out there for making the shaft slick. You got stuff like this. Sill Clean, which is supposed to clean the shaft and the ferrule. It actually does a really good job, but I've never really needed to silicone my shaft, and once you do, you have to keep doing it. So for me, natural wood, the way to go. And you'll find that with a lot of the stuff I do in pool, I do it the old-fashioned natural way. There are tools and things out that are more interesting, but for me, I prefer to overcome obstacles with skill rather than using somebody else's technology to do it. Okay, so let me put this up and we will talk about the rest of it. By the way, on the cue, some of you are going to be interested. This is a McDermott. I bought this in 1999 for about $800. It's one of their Highline cues. It's the RS, I think it's the 11. It's either the 11 or the 13. There was one cue in the Highline above it, but I like the way this one looked better. This has Coca-Cola points. It has ivory inlays. The butt and the joint are polymer, not ivory. It also has Coca-Cola and ivory in the butt, and it's got silver rings. Really nice cue. Book value on it now is about $3,000. They do actually go up in value. That's my playing cue. The tip on it is a LePro. It's a French leather layered tip. When you get tips, always go for the layered ones. They're more consistent. Because the layers are different densities, as humidity and heat and temperature and everything changes, it expands and contracts a regular tip. But the way that the layered tips are created, they expand, they have offsetting expansion, so they're always expanded the same. Well, I'm here, let me turn on the air. So this is my brake cue. It's a Mucci. It's from 1992. I bought this. It's been used, abused. It's been broken. They are very flexible. This was a pretty inexpensive cue. I think it was $200 when I bought it. It's probably worth $200 now. 2 points. It's got several cracks in the rings, like I said, used and abused. That's my brake cue. Let's talk about braking and jump cues. Braking cues, in the current sense, are cues with extremely hard, they're called phenolic tips. Phenolic tips are really hard manufactured material. designed to give a solid impact with no give in the tip. Those tips are used for both brake and jump cues, which is why you see a lot of cues that are combinations of both. The only reason I use a brake cue is because I have an extra cue that I've had forever, and I have a hard brake, as you'll see, and so I've snapped a few shafts, and so having your playing cue shaft snap and losing the match because you don't have another one kind of sucks. I have had 2 shafts in a row break on me. Other than that, that's pretty much the equipment, the care of the shaft. Really all you need to do is shape the tip, burnish it, which I will show you at some point. Which, by the way, burnish, all you do is you spit on it, and then you take a $1 bill and turn it so that the sides get hardened, the tip doesn't spread out or mushroom. I'll show you that someday. It's not key, but it does help. By the way, you don't have to spit, you can use water, but typically it's just more convenient to take a little spit and wipe it on it. So anyhow, that's pretty much it. The rest of the cue you just simply wipe down with a soft cloth and it's good to go. So that's your cues. Alright, let me get my set out. So to start with, this is billiard cleaner polisher, billiard ball cleaner and polisher. You shake it up, and the way that this works, you can see that cue ball is really pretty nasty. It's got a lot of blue spots on it from the chalk. It's got some scrapes and abrasions. So really all you do with this is you take a little bit of it, you put some on your cloth, and then you clean the cue ball with it. So this is the manual way of doing it. I will occasionally do all of them like this when I have the time. Typically, though, I really don't want to spend an hour or more cleaning the balls, especially when I'm going to do it every 3rd or 4th time I play. So I might do the cue ball by hand. Once you wipe that, then you just take the dry part and basically rub it around on there, and you end up with a nice shiny white cue ball with no blemishes, and it kind of acts like wax and fills in any gaps and things like that. So since I don't like to screw with it and I don't want to spend that kind of time doing it, this is just a salad bucket. You buy it at Home Goods or Bed Bath & Beyond or any of those kinds of stores. Circular buffer. And I think you can see where this is going. Basically, all I'm going to do is throw the whole set in my little bucket there. I'm only doing the 9 that we're using because the other ones have been done. They're just sitting down there clean. And even though I just did that by hand, I'm going to throw it in there too. Take this, you put it somewhere secure. I'm just going to use the floor over here. Take my buffer. Plug it in. Take my polish. Little drop on each ball. A little drop on the top of each one. One note on this, if you don't have cleaner or if you're going out to a pool hall, You can also use Johnson's wax on this. Just be aware that if you use Johnson's paste wax on the balls, it will make them act as if they're on a brand new cloth. There will be no friction whatsoever. The downside to it is the wax will get in the cloth, so it decreases the life of your playing surface. And since a cloth like this is Simona's 860, it's made specifically for 9-ball. Replacing this will run, materials are about $300 for a roll of it that's big enough to do the whole table. Because I happen to live alone, I can't lift the rails by myself, so I'll have somebody come in and do it. It'll probably at the end of the day cost me $600 or $700 because I get the best guys in the area to do it. They actually use a level on this that is within the thickness of a dollar bill in tolerance. So it's a machinist's level, and it'll be perfect when they do it. Someday you'll see that, probably not too far in the future, but you will see it. Okay, so cleaning the balls. Secure your bucket so it doesn't go anywhere, because it will move everywhere if you don't. Buffer on move it in circular motion. About a minute. Okay, at this point, they've got the stuff all over them. They've had any real hard parts knocked out. Now we're going to take a cloth, same cloth I used a minute ago, and just basically clean off any excess and throw them on the table. And you can see they come out of there looking like new. All we're doing is wiping off any excess. And I'm going to jump forward. I'm going to skip the rest of wiping these down and move forward, so I will be back in a moment. The balls are clean. And let me explain real quickly why it's so important to have clean equipment. When the balls are dirty and they make contact, it creates extra friction, which means that if you're shooting a shot and it's a cut shot, it can actually push the ball the wrong way. It's called throwing it, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But having too much dirt changes the shot. It also causes cases where a ball skids, which means that when it hits with less friction in one place than it does with the rest of the ball, and so that it changes the angle and you can actually miss a shot because the ball's got different levels of dirt on it. So that's why we clean the balls. We're going to go ahead and put these down here in the holder on the end of the table for a minute and drop them on the floor and get them nice and cleaned up before we ever play on our nice clean balls. And by the way, there are a million double entendres. The look on some people's faces at times are kind of comical. Walked into the place that I got the table, which is the Greater Southern Billiards Company. I walked into their showroom and yelled across the floor at the guy who had bought it that, "Hey, my balls are dirty, I need a cleaner." And yeah, the other patrons in the shop were kind of shocked, except for the couple that were looking at pool tables who were kind of laughing. Anything that's got sticks, balls, throw, and all these other terms is going to have double entendres. They're here. Make fun of them, laugh at them. Don't take them too seriously. Okay, so balls are clean. Now we're going to take care of the table. Now, as I said, I deliberately let this table go till today to do this. So the first thing, I am not a fan of brushes on a table. It's been my experience that brushes mean bristles, and bristles on the table after you're done brushing suck. If you have no choice, you can certainly brush it. This is a table brush. You can see it's kind of two different widths. You've got soft bristles on the edges for getting under the rails, and then you've got the main bristles in the center, which are for the table itself. If you're going to use one, start at the head of the table. This is the head, that's the foot. You rack on the foot, and you break from the head. So start at the head of the table, under the rail, brush it into the pocket. Okay? Then start from there, brush one direction, straight down, making sure to get under the rails and everything, and brush straight down the table towards the foot. Notice I'm not going back and forth, I'm not going in circles, I'm going in one direction towards the foot. And the reason for that is you're lining up the nap of the cloth. Now, Simona's 860 does not have a thick nap, as it's called. The nap is how much it sticks up above the table. If you played around a lot, you've probably seen bar tables where this looks like it's covered in felt. Thick felt with fibers, curly fibers that stick up around, and it kind of looks like a rug. The reason you brush down is because it makes it consistent the way the ball rolls across the whole table. Now in the old days, they used to have, all the cloth had that thick nap, they all looked like felt, and when you brushed them, if you brushed them towards the pocket, balls would roll down and curve to follow the nap. Maybe not as dramatically as I just showed, but they would. So everybody would brush straight down towards the foot, and that's the approved proper method of doing it. And we could get away with brushing this and then doing the rest, but I'm kind of a stickler on this, and because it's been too long, I'm going to break my own rule and I'm going to use a vacuum on it. Putting a vacuum on it is not something you should do every day. It's something you should do, depending on how often you use it, once a month, once every 3 months. And the reason is that the beater on the vacuum, the part that spins and has the bristles, the beater will actually tear up your cloth. You remember I told you this is 6-year-old cloth, and the reason it's in the shape it's in is because I don't use a vacuum normally. Now I am this time, as I said, because I let it go. It's got a lot of stuff on it. I want to get it all up, so this is my once every 3-month use of a vacuum on it. And we'll just hit this real quick. Sorry for the noise. Basically, I'm just going to make sure I vacuum over the whole thing. No real order to it, except me being conscientious that I want to get the whole thing. And this vacuum has a little area that there'll be like a stripe that missed, so I go back and forth a few times. Use the bare floor low setting, and here we go. Okay, just noticed I need to vacuum my vacuum. Okay, so we did the main carpet. Now we're going to get out the cleaning tool. We're going to use a little brush. This guy. By the way, I have a Dyson also vacuum. It does not work for this. Do not use a Dyson vacuum on your pool table. It won't pick everything up, and it will destroy your felt, or your carpet. So we're going to take a little brush and get under the rails with it. And with that, we're done with the vacuum. Again, sorry for that noise. All right, so typically when I clean it, I don't do the vacuum and I don't do the brush. What I do is what I'm about to do, which is a damp cloth. Show you how to do that. And I do the damp cloth every time I get ready to play. And then while it's drying, we'll talk about the different parts of the pool table, how I've got mine marked. We'll go ahead and mark it because it needs to be refreshed anyhow. And then we'll get to practicing. So let me grab a damp cloth and put this vacuum away. Oh, while we're at it, we ought to talk about level too. So the Brunswick has adjustable feet. You turn the feet, and they're on little ball bearing lined, basically casters. You turn them to raise and lower. And the way that you tell if a table is level, is you take a clean ball and you drop it. That takes all your hand out of the picture, and then you watch it, and if it has any noticeable roll, then you deal with it. Again, drop it, let it roll down, and watch it when it comes back to you. And this looks like it's in pretty good shape. You can also try the diagonal test where you roll diagonally across the table and just watch it and see if it rolls off. A typical level will not tell you. Most tables that are considered grossly off level will not even register on a typical level that you buy at Home Depot. You really need a machinist level to do it. And again, roll diagonally. Yeah, looks pretty good. So I'm happy with how it is. You can use any cloth. I actually like to use one that's a little bigger than this normally, but I don't seem to have one right handy, so I'll just use this. Regular cotton cloth. Take it, get it wet, wring it out. It should not be dripping. Wet but not dripping. Take it, fold it into quarters. What you're going to do is you're going to use the first quarter, start from the center, and just both directions, straight up and down. Make sure you get past the midpoint of the table. Okay? Same side, other side of the table. And remember, we just brushed and vacuumed this half of the table. See all the blue? I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's pretty blue. Okay, take the other, use the other side. Do this half of the table. I have to replace that sooner rather than later. I'll probably pick up a paper spot to put on it just temporarily. Right, we're going to do this half of the table. That other side. Make sure it doesn't roll up and crinkle on you because you'll end up skipping spots. All right. Turn it over. Notice all I did is flipped it over. Now we're going to use that and we're going to run on the rails. We're going to do all the rails like that. Let's go all the way around the table. Why am I cleaning the rails? Same reason you clean the balls. Dirty rails equals different play. And pool is all about consistency. So on the rails, by the way, if you do this at your local pool hall, pretty sure they won't kill you unless they don't know anything about pool. This is actually the proper way to clean the felt. And you can see it looks 100% better than it did. It's still got some dampness. Meanwhile, I'm going to flip this over, fold it into quarters again. I'm going to start at one of the corners, and I'm going to clean the actual rails themselves. Just wiping them down with that same water. Different side of the cloth, but same water. And this will take all your fingerprints off of them. It won't scratch the pockets. And basically it'll get your table nice and clean. This is really the last step with the table top. So in the end of the table, there's a place to put the balls, to store them. It's where the balls are sitting right now. That side that hasn't been used yet, by the way, I don't know if you can see it, but look at all the blue that came off of the rails. I'm going to clean my rack. Up here at the top, you'll see where the balls are hitting it. That will cause the ball to stick to the rack, which is why you can lay down a perfect rack, pull the rack off, and the top ball rolls up. Or it's one of the reasons. So I always clean the inside edge of my rack all the way around. Make sure, paying special attention up near the top where you see the ball marks to make sure there's nothing there. And we got our rack nice and clean. Okay, so while that's drying, and then this just goes in the dirty clothes to be washed. Okay, so while it's drying, let's talk about the different parts of the pool table that you need to know about. So, this is the head of the table. It's where you break from. That's the foot of the table, that's where the rack goes. The important things to know, these are rails. This is, the cloth on this is called the carpet. And this is the table itself. From the second, these are diamonds. These spots on it are diamonds. From the second diamond straight across is what's called the head string. It's the line you have to break behind in bar 8 ball. So in the center, the middle diamond here and the second diamond here, there's a spot there. It's called the head spot. It's exactly the same as what people just call the spot, which is actually called the foot spot. The head spot is the center of the head string. You have a spot in the center of the table. It's called the center spot. It's only really used in a couple of games, most notably 14-in-1 continuous or straight pool. You have a foot spot. That's where the top ball in the rack goes when you rack it. Typically there's a paper spot there if you're in a bar. I don't use the paper spots because they actually do throw shots off. However, I'm going to probably have to put one on here temporarily because I've broken so many times so hard that I've got a hole right there in the cloth. You have something which is not marked on the table called the foot string, which goes from the second diamond here straight across. The only reason that's important is for the little spot right here where the head spot is. Okay, so those are, this is the foot rail, that's the head rail for obvious reasons. These are the 4 side rails. Rack, not technically part of the table, but we use it so much that it might as well be. I'll be right back. So my table is marked a little bit differently than most. On my table, rather than having a foot spot, I have a point drawn that is a cross, basically. And I use a Sharpie to do this. I outline the rack. And I do this because I play a lot of 14 and 1 continuous or straight full. One of the rules in that game, or there are actually several rules in that game that are very specific to the location of the rack and whether a ball is inside the rack or not. So marking it that way helps me. It also means that I always rack them in the same place. What you don't see, which I actually ought to just go ahead and draw out, is there's a straight line running all the way down to, and I'm just remarking these so that hopefully you can see them. I don't know if they'll show up on the video. But basically, the idea behind these is so that people will rack the balls straight. And I do this on my table very specifically because of the straight pull thing. The other reason this line goes all the way down and doesn't just stop at the bottom of the rack is because the rule in spotting a ball is that the ball gets spotted directly behind, directly on the head spot. But if there's something on the head spot or something in here that's preventing you from using the head spot, it goes behind it on this line. So the line gets drawn all the way down just in case for some reason there's balls scattered here and I've got a ball, I've got a spot, I need to spot it here, I know where that line is. Okay, so and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this one line right here also. And this is the line that gives us where the actual location of the head spot is. So let me tell you why that hole is actually forward of the head spot. When I first got the table, and it had brand new cloth on it that had never been used before, had some friends over to shoot pool, and the very first thing guy did is he racked the balls, he took one of the balls out and went wham! And basically ruined the cloth for me the first day I had it. Don't do that. Do never, ever, ever, ever take a ball and bang it on another ball on the table. It's very bad for the cloth. Since then, it means that the rack settles in that spot. When you take the rack off, the head ball will settle into that spot. And as you can see here, I now have a hole there. So I'm not gonna bother marking the head string right now. I'm just really worried about the rack. You'll also notice that on the bottom of my rack, in the exact center, there's a vertical line. It's on each side. When I'm racking, that line lines up with that line I just drew down there. So that's how I mark the table. And now this table's ready for play. I'll go back later and I'll remark the head string in the center spot and the head spot, but this table is good enough for us to get started with. So that's how you take care of your equipment. That's how you prepare your table for play. I will tell you that before I ever used a Sharpie on this, I measured that about 100 times to make sure it was the right place before I did it. The last thing you want is a mismarked table. Okay, so, oh, one other piece of equipment. This is your bridge. It's a manual bridge, or mechanical bridge, I mean. People use this wrong all the time. When you use the bridge, and you'll see me do this, and this is the only time I'm going to explain it, so pay attention. You'll see people do this, and they try to guide it while they're shooting. You'll see people hold the cue like this. The proper way, those are all wrong. The proper way to use a bridge is to put it where you need it, secure it to the table with your hand. Press it down, you're not going to break it. You want to make sure that bridge doesn't move. Your cue goes on top of it with a dart grip. So I'm holding this just like I would hold a dart. You know, you hold a dart to throw it, same thing. Hold the cue that way. And notice that I'm not moving my wrist, I'm moving my whole arm to move that, and that'll give me a nice straight stroke. Okay, that's how you use a bridge. It'll come up again, but I'm not going to go over it. So, with that, thank you. I appreciate any comments, any questions. Be happy to answer them. If there are none, great. It means I did a good job of explaining, or at least that's how I'm going to believe it, or what I'm going to believe it means. In the meantime, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.